Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Councillor Michael Ford, and I am the Vice Chair of the Etobicoke Community Council, and will be chairing today's meeting. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I will call meeting 23 to order. Welcome, everyone. Just a quick comment before we begin, just on behalf of the members of committee, as Councillor Grimes continues to recover from his knee surgery. We wish him all the best and a speedy recovery back. So today's meeting is being held by video conference. City staff are also connecting to the meeting by video conference. As civic buildings remain closed, the public will continue to participate electronically and can watch the meeting streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. I ask everyone for their patience with any delays and technical issues. As many of you know, we do have a network, some network issues with Rogers. So if that causes any challenges during the committee meeting, we will address them as they come. The clerk staff have connected all registered speakers to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Etobicoke Community Council's page at toronto.ca/council by clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Clerk's IT staff will be available to assist members with their devices. I would like to remind staff to keep their mics muted and their videos turned off unless they need to answer questions or speak to the committee. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching the YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate and vote on items. Members, please keep your mic muted unless you wish to question staff or speak to an item, and ensure that your video is turned on. As part of each agenda item, I will ask members to raise their hand or unmute their mic if they wish to question staff or speak. I will then create a speakers list and will call on members when it is their turn to speak. When voting on an item or a motion, I ask that members ensure that they turn on their video and to raise their hand to indicate their vote. Members, I want to remind you that you must still submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at etcc@toronto.ca to help with your motions. Although we are meeting in different locations and meeting remotely today, the committee would like to acknowledge the land that we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Members, are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic to indicate the item number and the nature of the interest. I am seeing none. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes of our last two meetings on January 8, 2021 and March 3, 2021? Moved by Councillor Deputy Mayor Holliday. All those in favour? Opposed? That carries. Are there any petitions at this time? Seeing none. Before we get started with the items on the agenda, I wanted to inform the committee and meeting participants that the city encountered a citywide geospatial software problem that resulted in owners of lands not receiving a legislatively required notice on the following three agenda items. EY 23.1, 1306 to 1310 the Queensway zoning bylaw amendment, as well as EY 23.2, 1693 to 1707 Weston Road and 10 Victoria Avenue East zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition applications, and as well as EY 23.3, 250 Wincott Drive, and 4620 Eglinton Avenue West zoning bylaw amendment application. The Etobicoke York Community Council cannot hold the public meetings on these zoning bylaw amendments today, and the items will be withdrawn from the agenda. As a result, public speakers will not be heard today, and the items cannot be debated by the committee. The items will be placed on the May 17th, 2021 Etobicoke York Community Council agenda, and a new notice of public meetings will be sent out in accordance with the requirements under the Planning Act. Anyone who has already registered to speak to the Etobicoke York Community Council on these three items will be automatically added to the speakers list for the May 17th, 2021 meeting. Any additional speakers can still continue to register for the May 17th meeting. Written submissions on these items will be moved with the item to the May 17th meeting. And of course, our apologies for the inconvenience to all the deputants. So I guess we will, at this time, Nancy, take a motion to withdraw the three, or as we go through the agenda?
You could just go through the agenda.
So we'll just start going and we'll move it there. Okay, so at this time, we will turn our attention to the agenda and go through the roll here. So, first item, 23.1, 1306 to 1310, the Queensway zoning bylaw amendment final report. I will move that this item be withdrawn from the agenda. Looking to members of the committee, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Moving on to item EY 23.2, 1693 to 1707 Weston Road and 10 Victoria Avenue East zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition applications. Final report. Again, we will remove to withdraw this from the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And then lastly, for items being withdrawn, EY 23.3, 250 Wincott Drive and 4620 Eglinton Avenue West zoning bylaw amendment application final report. Motion to be withdrawn will be moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And once again, our apologies to deputants. EY 23.4, 2996 Weston Road zoning bylaw amendment application. Request for directions report. Councillor Parizza.
So we're on 14?
No, we're on 4, 23.4. 2996 Weston Road. Would you like to move?
Yeah. Sorry, I apologize. Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to move the staff recommendations on this one.
Okay, moving to staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. EY 23.5, 2200 Islington Avenue, application to lift holding provisions, status update. This is an item in my ward I'd like to hold down for questions to staff.
And speakers.
Oh, and there's speakers to the item. EY 23.6, intention to designate under Part 5, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, 96 Superior Avenue and 214 Queens Avenue. This is timed for 9:30. We can deal with this now. Members of the committee, is anyone wish to hold it or move adoption? This is in Councillor Grimes' area, and my understanding is Councillor Holiday, you've taken carriage of Councillor Grimes' items?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move it. I would just want to make sure that we're okay moving it at this time, since it is a timed item. I guess we've passed that point, so I'll happy to move the staff recommendations.
Yep, we're good to go. So with that being said, Councillor Holiday moves staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. EY 23.7, inclusion on the City of Toronto's Heritage Registrar, 60 Birmingham Street. This is time for 9:30. In Councillor Grimes' ward, Councillor Holiday.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish to move the staff recommendations.
Staff recommendation so moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay. EY 23.8, request for offense exemption to the Toronto to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447, 109 Valcrest Drive. This will be held down for speakers. EY 23.9, request for offense exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447, 156 Church Street. This is held for 10 a.m. for speakers. Next is EY 23.10, request for offense exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447, 9 Van Dusen Boulevard, held for 10 a.m. speakers. EY 23.11, application to remove a city-owned tree, 29 Crandon Avenue, and this will be held for speakers at 10 a.m. EY 23.12, application to remove 2 city-owned trees, 146 Stanley Avenue, held for speakers at 10 a.m. EY 23.13, naming of 2 proposed private streets at 225 Birmingham Street. This will be held for 10 a.m. as we have speakers. EY 23.14, pedestrian crossing protection, the Pond Road and Nelson Road. We have speakers on this item, so it will be held down. EY 23.15, Vision Zero Road Safety Plan, right turn on red prohibitions, Etobicoke, York. Look for a mover, Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the staff recommendations.
Staff recommendations are so moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. EY 23.16, all-way stop control, Dixfield Drive and Odessa Avenue. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the staff recommendations.
Staff recommendations so moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. EY 23.17, all-way stop control, Mary Chapman Boulevard and Parada Drive. Councillor Perruzza.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to move an alternate to the staff recommendation. I believe the clerk has it, to approve the all-way stop at, authorize approval of the all-way stop at Parada and Chapman.
Okay. Councillor Holiday, would you like a recorded vote on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do.
Okay. Look for a recorded vote. I'll just turn it over to.
All of those in favor of adopting Councillor Perruzza's motion on the item, when I call your name, please indicate how you are voting. Councillor Grimes is absent. Councillor Ford.
In favor.
Councillor Holiday.
Opposed.
Councillor Nunziata.
In favor.
Councillor Perruzza.
In favor.
That motion carries 3-1.
Thank you so
Nan-
much.
Thank you, Nancy. Moving on to EY. Does that have to be moved as amended? Or is that okay? No, never mind. Sorry. That doesn't need to be moved as amended. We're good. Okay. Yep. Okay, sounds good. EY 23.18, traffic calming poll results, Hawley Avenue between Park Street and Rectory Road. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I have a motion.
Okay.
Okay, the motion is on the screen.
Councillor Nunziata, just
Mr. Chair, may I
what
record a
are
vote?
you moving here?
I'm moving the traffic calming.
Okay. Will we take a recorded vote on this? I think we will. Councillor Holiday, recorded vote?
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. Yes.
All those in favor of Councillor Nunziata's amendment, when I call your name, please indicate how you're voting. Councillor Grimes is absent, so Councillor Ford.
In favor.
Councillor Holiday.
Opposed.
Councillor Nunziata.
I'm in favor.
Councillor Perruzza.
Looks like he froze.
Councillor Perruzza, how are you voting on the item,
Yeah,
please?
I'm sorry. I'm having trouble with my audio and stuff. Which one are we on now? Sorry?
It's the one in my ward for traffic calming.
We're on UI 23.18, and Councillor Nunziata has moved an alternate motion to approve
Okay.
traffic calming.
Sure. I'm in favor.
Thank you. That item carries 3-1.
Thank you, Nancy. EY 23.19, introduction of overnight on-street parking, York Road. Councillor Nunziata.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Staff recommendation so moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay. EY 23.20, parking amendments, Bardenville Avenue East. Councillor Nunziata.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Staff recommendation so moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. EY 23.21, encroachment approval for existing sanitary system for the Kipling Bus Terminal project. This is in Councillor Grimes' ward. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the staff recommendations.
Staff recommendation so moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. EY 23.22, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880, fire routes, 1515 Albion Road, 38 Fontenay Court, 150 Ormont Drive, and 2277 to 2295 Shepherd Avenue West. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the staff recommendations.
Staff recommendation so moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. EY 23.23, removal of a director from the Kingsway Business Improvement Area Board of Management. We're going to hold this down for speakers. And then we have... So, members, before we get back to the agenda, we have 3 new items to add to the agenda. First is from Councillor Nunziata, will be put in as EY 23.24, as well as from Councillor Grimes, which will be submitted as EY 23.25. And I think we have... And then another one from Councillor Grimes, which will be put on as EY 23.26. So we'll add them all as a package. All those in favor to add in the items to the agenda? That carries. Okay. So, give us 1 second here and we'll begin the first item shortly.
isn't home with the city clerk's office to call in user 416-241. I'm unmuting your mic. If you could identify yourself, please.
No, no,
Hello, this isn't home with the city clerk's office to call in user 416-241. I'm unmuting your mic again. Please identify yourself.
Hi there, can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. So this is Giuseppe Buttice.
yes,
We're discussing the removal of the director for the BIA, the Kingsway BIA. He's opposing to it.
Okay, understood. Sorry, we just need to identify you, and when your name is called, we will unmute your mic. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
This isn't home with the city clerk's office to call in user 416-889. Please identify yourself. Your mic is currently unmuted.
Hello, you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Peter Numchuck here. Peter Numchuck,
Sorry.
that's 3000 Weston Road regarding 2996 Weston Road.
Understood. Thank you. We'll leave you on mute until your name is called.
Thank you.
This isn't home with the city clerk's office to call in user 416-789. I'm unmuting your mic. Please identify yourself.
Hi, this is Mario Pileggi, 156 Church Street. Hello?
Thank you. Apologies for that. I've recorded that, and we will leave you on mute until your name is called. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Right, right. Okay, so we understand that there is a speaker on an item that we passed. So it was 2996 Weston Road, zoning bylaw amendment application, request for directions report. The committee did adopt this. Since we do have a speaker, is it the will of the committee to reopen the item and just hold it down? Looking for a motion? I think we should. I'll place the motion to reopen. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So, with that being said, our first item on the agenda will be EY 23.4, 2996 Weston Road zoning bylaw amendment application request for directions report. It is my understanding that we do have a speaker on this.
Peter Numchuck here. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to speak yet or...
Oh, yeah, sure. Just give us 1 second. We'll just call out the speaker's name momentarily. Sir, is your name Peter Numchuck?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, sir, welcome to the committee. So you have 5 minutes to depute on this item. Following that, you may have some questions from the committee. So welcome, and your 5 minutes may begin now.
I'm speaking regarding the setback that has been requested to move back about another 10 meters from the original setback. And this property in question has a lot of fill. To the north, there's a new street called George Mackenzie Court. It used to be the front yard of 3000 Weston Road, and all the soil was excavated from George Mackenzie Court into the backyard of 2996. And if you see the map, which connects 3000 and 2996 Weston Road, the land for 3000 was expropriated to the top of the bank, and the top of the bank continued southbound through 2996 and then 2986, ending about 60 feet from Weston Road. But yet this land was all filled in the middle, and the permit is applied for on excavated, not packed soil. We witnessed the soil movement 8 years ago when this street was being built. We purchased the house from the previous owners, Boychucks, and I think that if this application is approved, then I would like our land back for 3000 Weston Road. Valleys just don't end at a line. They on our property line, for example, if you see the map, it just doesn't make sense that this property of 2996 extends to the west farther than the property or the top of the bank of 3000. That's my issue.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. I'll look to the committee if they have any questions for the deputy. Seeing none?
None.
Yeah. Sorry. So, I see no questions. Thank you very much, Peter, for coming in front of the committee today.
Thank you for taking my call.
Any further speakers to this item? Seeing none, and no indication that there are. Questions of staff? Seeing Councillor Perruzza.
Yeah, just very briefly, if the staff can explain the, so Peter has some valid concerns. He's had some valid concerns right from the get-go. But if we can just simply have our staff take us through in a brief way first of all, the request of the applicant that's before the LPAT, the Land Tribunal, and then what this report actually does, and if we decided not to move forward with this report, what the implications would be. Just three questions, really, all in one.
Through the chair, it's Louisa Galley. I can speak to the item. So the applicant is, or the owner of the site is requesting a reduction in the west yard setback for the western lot, which we refer to as lot 5, from 11.75 meters to 1.8 meters. That is what the appeal is for. We don't have an issue with that setback requirement because it is standard for the area. The speaker spoke a lot about TRCA and talkback issues. A TRCA permit will be required prior to a building permit being issued for any kind of construction that happens on that lot, and that would dictate exactly where the placement of the building would go on that lot. Now, this is an item that has been appealed, so we are seeking direction to go to LPAT in favor of the appeal for the 1.8 meter setback that they're requesting. Councillor, did I answer your questions? I thought maybe I did.
No. Sure, it does. Yes. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perruzza. Any further questions of staff? Seeing none. Speakers, Councillor Perruzza.
Yeah, very briefly, Mr. Chair. So this is a directions report. So what happened was we had an application before this community council and city council seeking to sever a site into a number of lots. I believe it was 5, and this would be, I think this is the 6th. Yes. Or 5 lots, sorry. It went through community council, and there was, I guess, the applicant had slightly different configuration for the property that would be built to the west of the site. He had sort of placed the house much closer, and there was a much wider setback, which is, being referred to now as kind of like the top of the bank. Since City Council approved this, it was my understanding from staff, speaking to staff, that in fact they were okay with the setback right from the get-go. The applicant never requested it, so it was never dealt with that way. But after City Council approval, I guess the applicant changed their mind and decided to place the sort of the one of the houses located differently on the site, on the lot, which to some degree narrows the setback. But is not unusual. So if we followed, and I understand what Peter's saying, it moves the new home closer to his residence, to the west. But if we simply said today, we are not going to LPAT, our absence there would just simply mean that the applicant has an application before that tribunal. And quite frankly, we wouldn't be there as the city, as the approving authority, in response to any matter related to their application. And I think that would be inappropriate for us to take that course of action. I think it would be irresponsible, because then at that point we would be in a position where we would simply lose any say over that particular application, which has been appealed, by the way, and that bylaw, in essence, has been appealed to LPAC. So simply saying, no, we're not going, wouldn't cut it. And to say that we wouldn't have a position with respect to trying to preserve some of our, sort of planning authority and planning rules as it relates to locating the homes on the properties and so on. I think that would be inappropriate as well. So while I'd like to be accommodating to Peter and trying to help him out, I think that by not approving this today, by not directing our staff to attend the hearing with some instructions, would be inappropriate for us to undertake that. So I will be moving, as I did earlier, the staff recommendations that have been provided here today.
Thank you, Councillor Perruzza. Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, Councillor Perruzza will move the report. All those in favor?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So moving on to EY 23.5, 2200 Islington Avenue, application to lift holding provision status update. We have 2 speakers to the item. First speaker, Mr. Livy, John Livy.
Hello, this isn't home with the city clerk's office. John just connected their mic. I will unmute them now.
No problem. And I know I don't need to give John too much of a run through on how committee works.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of Community Council. I hope you could hear me.
Yeah, we can.
It's good to see you all.
Mr. Livy, thank you for, pardon me?
It's good to see you all, if only virtually. I know you can only hear me. But today's meeting has given me a reason for the first time in a year to wear a suit and tie and imagine I'm back at City Hall. What a year it's been.
I don't know too many people are wearing suit and ties nowadays with virtual settings, but it's great. Well, Mr. Livy, you're no stranger to the committee. Always happy to have you here. And not just because you're speaking about something in my ward, but always happy to have you. Of course, you have 5 minutes to depute to the committee, and of course, at the end, some may have questions for you. So I'll give you 5 minutes. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm here on behalf of the Rice Group and their application located at 2200 Islington. It's at the corner of Rexdale Boulevard and Islington Avenue. Costco will be the major tenant and is anxiously waiting to open a new store to serve the northeast quadrant of the city. It's been a long journey to get to where we are today. The original zoning application was submitted in 2013. Rice acquired the property in 2016. And working with staff, the rezoning and subdivision applications were approved by council in May of 2018. There was a subsequent LPAT appeal. It was heard and dismissed at the very end of 2019, December of 2019. Since that time, our team has worked extensively with planning staff and all the city divisions and agencies to complete the subdivision conditions and address the 4 conditions for the lifting of the H bylaw, complete the site plan, prepare engineering and architectural drawings for the roads and the buildings. And so 3 months after the LPAT decision, so in early last year, we ran into COVID and all its difficulties. In spite of all the logistics and gymnastics that everyone had to overcome, we've made tremendous progress. City staff and our team met regularly every 2 weeks to address the myriad of issues typical with an application of this scale. Hundreds of emails, meetings, you know the drill. We made our best efforts to deal with issues in parallel and not to go down too many rabbit holes. After our 5th site plan submission, we are hoping to see soon the draft NOAC conditions and have the NOAC issued. We're not expecting that there are any issues left, and we don't see any reason for a 6th submission because that will delay us another month or more, and I'd ask you to ask staff to confirm that. Out at the site, we've graded the land and installed streets B and C and a multitude of municipal services. Construction of Street A is currently underway. And we're now ready to complete building permit applications for the parking deck and the Costco building. Once we get these permits, it will take a year or so, depending on the weather, to complete these structures. We hope to open the store in mid-2022. We had 4 conditions to fulfill in order to lift the hold conditions on the zoning bylaw and thereby allow us to get building permits for the parking deck and buildings. The first condition was a traffic impact study for the redesign of the Islington-Rexdale intersection. That has been approved by city staff. The second was a requirement to design and construct the reconfigured Islington-Rexdale intersection. We issued a contract for $5.5 million and our construction crew is hard at it. As of today, we are 75% complete. As you can see from the photo, if the clerk could put up the photo, we've moved the traffic off the old configuration to the new T intersection as requested. We've also completed the new intersection at Rexdale and Bergamot, and 50% of the sidewalks are under construction. By this time next month, we will have completed over 85% of the project with finishing touches needed to complete the last stage, stage 5. And I note that the recent provincial lockdown prohibitions actually allow us to continue on with the road work. It's a permitted essential work. The third condition to lift the hold required the Rice Group to enter into an agreement of purchase and sale with the city for a remnant piece of land created by the reconfigured intersection. We have now signed and finalized that agreement of purchase and sale and agreed to pay the city $3.3 million for 1.2 acres of land. The bylaw to declare the land surplus has been enacted, and the road closure bylaw for that old portion is scheduled for your meeting on May the 17th. Finally, we were required to address these conditions to the satisfaction of the city and at no cost to the city. We've deposited $7 million in securities and fees, over $3 million of securities and fees for the subdivision work. We expect the fees to be in the neighborhood of $1 million, development charges in the neighborhood of $10 million, and annual property taxes to be approximately $3.2 million. We would appreciate community council support and direction for two things today so that we can avoid delays in our construction program. We would appreciate receiving from planning staff the draft NOAC so we can finalize the building permit application. We would like to have the holding bylaw lifted next month as we reach 85%. The TIS is done, the sub-ruminant parcels closed, has been completed, and next month.
Mr. Livy, if you could wrap up.
We worked hard to get this far. We want to keep up the momentum. We appreciate all your efforts. We appreciate all the efforts of staff, and we look forward to your ongoing support for this development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Livy. Looking to the committee, any questions for the deputant? Councillor Nunziata.
Question, John. It's
Yes.
yeah. So the report that we have before us is that the recommendation is just to receive for information.
That's correct. That's, Councillor Ford asked for an update previously, and that this is the staff report giving an update and indicating that we're very close to receiving both the draft NOAC and hopefully we've completed much, if not all, the work needed to lift the H.
So you're okay with the report in front of us today with the recommendation just to receive?
We would be happier if council would be a little bit more directive with staff as to what the definition of completion means so that we can have a timely approval of the lifting of the H.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Any further questions to the deputant? Okay, seeing none from committee members. Mr. Livy, I will just start my time here, just to be consistent. Hold on, let me. Okay, and I'll pass the chair over to Councillor Holliday. So a couple questions. Thank you for coming in front of committee this morning, Mr. Livy. I think generally, and I think you know North Etobicoke quite well in your previous roles in the city, but you know, what benefits does this project bring to our community in North Etobicoke, what you would see?
A number of benefits, Mr. Chair. First off, the employment. We expect with the full development of the project to have over 1,500 jobs. That's triple the number of jobs that have ever existed on the site. The multiplier of the salaries and the taxes that are paid are in the tens of millions. I think generally we would have a great city building exercise with a new road, now much more urban in its nature, much less like a highway. So the urban environment, the placemaking that goes with the reconfiguration of the road and the architecture and design that we've worked hard with city staff will be a credit to the city. Costco is a major retailer. It provides a range of services that I think we all enjoy from time to time. And the additional retail units that will come will create more of a hub in an area which was more characteristically industrial. It'll transform into more mixed use in its nature and will be, I think, a great hub for the community.
Thank you for that. And then my second question, So with the holding provision, one of the things is, the city never wants to create risk to itself. And that's been part of the conversation here on having the H lifted. Just out of, for you to answer if you can, how much is the city currently holding in securities for the construction site right now?
Currently, Mr. Chair, that the city is holding $7.2 million. Our construction contract was for 5.5, so that provides a contingency in addition to the cost of the construction. We're 75% complete now. We'll be 85% complete next month. So you basically have $7.2 million to cover off some landscaping and some sidewalks should something untoward happen and somehow Rice or Costco disappear from the commercial landscape of Ontario, which is not likely. So I don't think there's any risk whatsoever. It's fully secured, and you can make sure that we will ensure that this will be built as a credit to the city.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Livy. That will end my questions. I'll just look to the committee. Any other questions for the deputant? Councillor Holladay.
Chair, I apologize. You've inspired me just to do a follow-up.
By all means.
That I understand this.
Go ahead.
Through you to the deputant today. So there are 4 provisions in order to lift the holding symbol. If I get it correct, the first is an acceptable traffic impact study. Now, have I got it right? That one has been met. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then so the balance of them is number 2 is the construction of the redesign of the Islington Avenue and Rexdale Boulevard signalized intersection. So either you're going to build it, or if the city decides, you cut a check for the city and the city will build it. But I think you said that's at 85%. Is that correct?
That's correct. The travel lanes are now on the new intersection alignment, and the old travel lanes have been ripped out and creating a remnant parcel of land that we are acquiring, which is a court condition for $3.34 million. And that agreement of purchase and sale has been signed by us and the city, so is now fully secured.
Right, that was number 3, right? Was the agreement of purchase and sale.
Correct.
So that one you said, and that's a significant change from the report, which was dated March 29th to today. Have I got that right?
That's right. It just happened the last few weeks.
Okay, and then the last one, of course, is number 4 that just says that all the conditions be successfully addressed to the satisfaction of the City of Toronto, which is sort of a coverall. And there was no other holding provisions. Have I got that correct?
That's correct. I mean, the holding provisions in the bylaw were in addition to all the conditions that were in the plan of subdivision, which we're still meeting and building and completing. We'll have a final registration, I'm assuming, fairly soon. But we also need a site plan. Without a site plan, we don't get building permits. We can't keep going on the parking deck. We can't keep going. So it's important to get all these various documents lined up to allow Toronto Building to give us permits for the parking deck and the Costco building.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Livy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Holladay. Looking back to the committee, any further questions for Mr. Livy? Seeing none, thank you very much, John, for coming in for our committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Moving on to our second speaker on EY 23.5, Michael Mendez.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of Community Council. My name is Michael with Rice Group. I've been working with staff on the development applications of 2200 Islington with respect to the realignment, the plan of subdivision, and the site plan application. I'm here this morning if any questions were to arise. Sounds like you guys covered them all off with Mr. Livy. So if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mendez. Any questions to the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Mendez.
Thank you.
Committee members will bring it into committee for questions of staff. Any member have questions of staff? Okay, I will, I have a couple, so I will start the time here and pass the gavel over to Councillor or Deputy Mayor Holliday. I think Louisa is on the line. Louisa, we've been working very hard on this application now with my office and of course your team in city planning. So it's my understanding that the applicant is on their fifth circulation with city divisions. And I would just like to confirm, is staff in a position, or are they ready to give the NOAC to the applicant?
Through the chair. So yes, you are correct. They've come in for their fifth circulation. We're not anticipating there to be any additional changes required to the drawings. So by the end of this week, that's when the comments are are due. And we're hoping that with no further revisions that we can go ahead and start preparing the NOAC.
Okay, excellent. I guess just to keep this brief, we've worked on a motion that I believe you guys have seen and worked on it with us. Are you okay with the wording of that motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ms. Galley, for all your work on this file. Any other members have questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, we'll go to speakers. I'll pass the gavel back to Councillor Holliday. This is in my ward. I do have a motion to move. Just put it up on the screen here. What this motion does is pretty much put it, actually I'll just read it out for the committee. City Council Amendment Bylaw 808-2018 to lift the holding provision from the northeast portion of the land and direct the Director of Community Planning, Etobicoke District, and the City Solicitor to introduce bills at such time as the intent of the holding provisions contained in the bylaw are satisfied, as set out in the report from City Planning dated March 29, 2021, or as otherwise may be determined appropriate by the Director of Community Planning, and two, City Council authorize appropriate City Solicitor and any other city staff to take such actions as are required to implement the decision of City Council. I don't know if that necessarily reads correctly. We may take a second look at that with the clerks, but at this moment, the intent of the motion is to really give staff the authority when they feel comfortable to lift the holding provision. That doesn't have to come formally in front of City Council, but we delegate the authority to city staff. Members, on a number of, I think, developments and files in North Etobicoke, I've been working very hard on really fostering economic investment in North Etobicoke. Prior to the pandemic, North Etobicoke had on average 2% higher unemployment rate than the rest of the city. Hasn't seen too much economic investment and development. And what we have been trying to do is really work with the business community, with our city planning and economic development and whatnot, to really foster and push in very strong economic investments such as this in our area. And I really want to thank city planning for doing such fantastic work, and Ms. Galley, work with her on a number of files. She does phenomenal work in trying to work with everyone to move these forward. I think we are at a position now with the 2200 Islington site development that I, from the local councillor's point of view, am very comfortable with getting this built and moving forward. And the community very much welcomes it. and is just another project in North Etobicoke that is going to bring jobs into the community, community growth, economic investment, which at a time during the pandemic, we need so much. And now more than ever, we need it. So, you know, I thank the Rice Group for their investment here and city staff for all the work that they're doing, and the community being a part of this as we go. So we're almost there. We just want to see it to fruition. So thank you. Those will conclude my comments. Any other members of the committee like to speak on the item? Seeing none, okay, so we will put the motion on the screen. All those in favor of the amendment, all those in favor? That carries. Do we need item as amended on that? No problem? Nope, all right, and that carries. So moving on, we'll move on to 2200 Islington. EY 23.8, request for fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447, 109 Valcrest Drive. We have speakers for 10 a.m. Just going to pull up the speakers list here. Stacia Morris, and my apologies if I'm mispronouncing any names.
That was perfect. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, Stacia, thank you very much, and welcome to committee. You have 5 minutes to give a deputation to the committee, and then following that, you may have some questions. So thank you. Your 5 minutes will begin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and for considering our application for the pool fence exemption. My name is Stacia Morris, and I'm a resident at 109 Valcrest Drive. My husband, Brian Winkle, and I are requesting your approval to have our screen porch walls and self-closing screen doors serve as our pool fence and gates. Just like the bylaw approved materials of chain link, metal pickets, wood or glass panels, our screens provide a safe, secure, impassable, and unscalable secondary barrier to the pool. In our letter to you, we provided background on how we came to consider this solution and how committed we are to upholding the safety requirements prescribed in the bylaw. To that end, the main points that we want to highlight are the fact that, Suncoast Enclosures is a 30-year-old Canadian company whose core product and their core competency is in building structurally engineered screen spaces to meet the requirements of the Canadian environment. This isn't a standard stretch and staples kind of screening. The screen itself is stronger than traditional screen, and this combined with the extruded aluminum beams that are used and the patented installation technique that they use gives the product a unique strength that makes it completely different from a traditional screen panel. They've backed their product with a comprehensive engineering report which certifies that their product adheres to national and Ontario building codes. We wanted to be certain that our installation would meet the Toronto Municipal Code requirements and have a stamped engineer's letter certifying that the screen system installed at our house provides equivalent performance, protection, durability, and non-climbability as the fence and gate construction prescribed in Chapter 447-1.3 subsection 2. In addition to these professional engineering assurances of strength and safety, we've also included some impressive real-world, I'll call them, proofs of strength. We've included a photo of a man who's standing on a screen roof, and I hope you had the opportunity to click on the link to see a video of a man repeatedly running into their screen wall, and both of these provide compelling examples in their own right. In closing, we take our safety responsibility seriously. Supported by the engineering certifications, we believe that the Suncoast Enclosure Screen System provides an effective, non-scalable, and durable barrier that meets the fencing requirements as outlined in the bylaw. We hope you're in agreement, and thank you kindly for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Any questions to the applicant? I see Deputy Mayor Holliday. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Morris, for speaking to us. It is correct that we deferred your application from the last meeting, right? So there's been a month, and you and I have connected and talked about your submission to the committee. Is that fair and correct? Yeah.
Yes.
And so can you just describe to the committee, because this is a bit unusual. We get fence exemptions often, but if I've got it right, you have a screened or are proposing a screened covered porch. Your original plans for your pool enclosure had railings around that porch, and that was acceptable under the bylaw. And you've changed from railings to screens. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. So originally, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say that I just want to make sure the committee members know where we were and where you're going to and the reason for your request before us.
Sure, thank you. So originally, we had planned to have glass panels as our guard between the covered porch going out to the pool area. And in one of the background documents, you can actually see that we use the glass guard system for the basement walkout, and we have a glass gate at the top of the stairs from the basement walkout. So we had originally intended to use that running across the back of the covered porch. We were, the reservation, so we like that because it's completely see-through, so we have a completely unobstructed view into the backyard. Our reservation with that was that it would substantially reduce the airflow into the covered porch. However, the sort of visibility, the clarity of the view was trumping that. We had intended, because we back onto green space, onto a cemetery, we have lots of bugs in the evening. So we had intended to do retractable screens, and it was in researching the retractable screen options that we actually came across Suncoast enclosures. And so that actually met all of our requirements in one sort of fell swoop, because we quickly understood that they had something that was structurally sound, that was considered equivalent to a wall, and that you absolutely couldn't pass through. And they did the self-closing, self-latching doors as well. So we had a barrier, and it provided us with the airflow that we were looking for and the bug protection we were looking for. So it's, okay. Yeah, that's sort of the journey to where we are.
And so the reason why you're in front of committee right now is because if you put in a glass railing, or if you put in wood pickets, or if you put in a chain link around the perimeter of your patio, you'd be okay. But in this case, you want to use a mesh screen, which runs actually from the floor to the ceiling, completely sealing off the area. It's because of the material that you're not allowed to build it. So the staff said you need to get an exemption. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's exactly right.
Okay. And now I was pretty challenging on you, and I asked for all the information on this screen. And one of the things that you did is you arranged for an engineer to sign a stamped letter that says that from an engineering perspective, this screen material meets is equivalent to all of the requirements that you would have otherwise found in chain link or glass or wood. And I think you read that out, that quote, that it says it meets it's equivalent to the protection offered in the bylaw. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I'm glad you talked to us, and I just wanted to take this moment to articulate what was going on, because it was, as I said, is a bit of an unusual application. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll have some questions for staff, but I have none for the applicant.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Additional ones.
Yep. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further questions to the applicant? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Morris, for your deputation. At this point, we will bring it into committee. Questions to staff? Deputy Mayor Holliday, question to staff, 5 minutes.
Thank you. I just want to make sure staff is on the call. I think Joe should be on the call. Perhaps I'll go ahead. Maybe just to confirm for the committee, did I get my understanding correct as I asked the applicant that essentially this is before us because the enclosure meets all the requirements of the bylaw except for the material that it's built out of. We only allow for wood pickets, glass, or chain link, and anything else needs an exemption. Is that correct?
Councillor Holiday, I'm just going to...
Hi, Councillor.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, it's Gurminder Prabha, Supervisor for MLS.
Thank you. Go ahead.
On behalf of Joe.
Oh, great. Thanks, Gurminder. Did you happen to catch the question?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did I get it correct?
So, yeah, you are correct in that it's just the type of material that is the at question today, in that it doesn't meet the requirements of the pool enclosure section from the fence bylaw.
Okay. And are you satisfied with respect to your review of the documentation submitted by the engineer that, you know, they've given some adequate documentation from your perspective that demonstrates an intent to meet the bylaw?
Yes, so the extra material that was provided by the applicant, and especially the engineer's report, we would be good with approval of the material.
Okay, and you saw the material, you were happy, or at least one of your staff was happy with what they saw?
Yeah, I was actually on site to see the material itself, so we were good with the material and the other safety precautions that are required, including the self-locking, self-latching gates and doors.
Okay, and otherwise, I mean, this is non-climbable. Would you agree with that? I mean, it's a screen, you can't pass through it, but you're satisfied that meets the non-climbability and really the overall intent of the bylaw?
Yes, Councillor.
Great, thank you very much. I had no further questions of staff, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Purpa.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Perruzza, questions to staff, 5 minutes.
Yeah, I not really, the question is not really for bylaw. I notice in the back that the deck, the enclosure, is at least 3 risers above the grade. And it's my understanding that anything above 3 risers requires a railing. So has a building permit been issued for the screen? Because if somebody goes through the screen, forget the pool, they're just gonna, you know, there's a building code issue here, right?
Is anyone from building on the line to answer Councillor Perruzza's question? I'll hold your time, Councillor Perruzza.
Well, maybe I can go back to the applicant and just ask the applicant: was a building permit issued for this, and it met the mesh met the standard of a railing? Because anything above 3 risers requires a railing.
Well,
so that the mesh.
Councillor Perruzza,
yeah.
let me see if we can. So just bury the procedure here. If hold on, just do it. Give us 1 second here. Is there anyone from building on the line? If the applicant,
I apologize to the chair. This is Nahum with the city clerk's office. I believe someone from building is on the line, but I'm unable to promote them. I will be unmuting their mic now.
Thank you very much.
Samir, this is Nahum with the city clerk's office. You are currently unmuted. Samir, this is Nahum with the city clerk's office. You are connected and unmuted. To the chair, I will reach out to staff directly.
Okay, thank you.
But I'll tell you, that's an important, because I mean, I essentially wouldn't have a problem. So if the local council is going to move approval, I wouldn't have a problem with approving it. But if the mesh does not meet the building code requirement of a railing because of the height that's above the grade. There's a liability issue here. There's a real serious liability issue in the sense that if somebody goes through the screen and hits their head on the ground, the homeowner, I mean, and I think the homeowner then has some very serious insurance challenges as well related to this. I guess my other question to legal would be that once we as a community council or as a city say that the mesh is okay, does that then say that should somebody go through the screen and survive the fall and tumble into the pool and die, does that basically say that then there's no more liability, that because City Council approved it as an equivalent to a for example a railing barrier or a fence barrier, that then too bad so sad. It's like hopping the fence and drowning in the pool. Is it the same as saying that?
Mr. Chair, on a point of order, perhaps I can be helpful.
Point of order, Councillor Holiday.
How to deal with it. Mr. Chair, if we could try to get building on the line to answer Councillor Peruzza's question, but in doing so, if we could just make sure that they are forwarded a copy of the specifications which were submitted by the applicant, because I believe deep within those specifications is a description of how this gets set up as a guard under the building code. If we could just make sure that building has that in front of them. I can't speak to the status of a building permit at the home, just because it's not part of what's before us, but perhaps building could answer that. I'm confident that they can clear the air once we get them on the phone. And I think that Councillor Peruzza has raised a fair question that should be answered in public.
I agree, Deputy Mayor. We are working to get building on the line. I think Tamer.
To the chair.
Yep.
This is Nahum with the City Clerk's office. I believe I've connected staff from building. I will unmute their mic now.
Thank you.
Tamer, your phone line is unmuted. You should be able to speak. Tamer McHale.
Should I ask my question again, or is the building person?
Councillor Peruzza, let's just get the staff on the line, and then I'll give you a chance to ask your question. I have your time on hold.
Tamer McHale, your phone line is unmuted. If you could please mute the YouTube stream in the background.
I did. Thank you very much. I see a building permit here. Sorry, I wasn't ready for the question, but there is a building permit.
So Tamer, just hold for 1 second. I'm going to give Councillor Peruzza the opportunity to re-ask his question so you have the question in its entirety, and then we can go from there. Councillor Peruzza, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. When you issued, was a building permit issued for this. It looks like this work was done fairly recently. Would you issue a building permit? I see here there's at least 3 risers in the back. There might be a 4th on top from the deck to the deck. I don't know, but it's my understanding that anything above 3 risers requires a railing, just simply because it's high. People don't fall off and break their legs. And does a mesh, a screen of this nature, meet that requirement under the building code? And would you say, yeah, you know what, this mesh, we're confident that that it would bar somebody from falling over and hurting themselves, and act very much like a railing or a fence or a parapet, the stuff that you would require, right?
Okay, I see a building permit that was issued back in July 2019. I don't believe that the permit included this latest configuration of the mesh and the stairs. But you're correct as far as the number of steps or risers. If it's more than 3, it requires a railing. And as far as the mesh is concerned, or the full fence itself, is not governed by the building code. The full fence is governed.
No, that's not the question I'm asking. I get that. Councillor Holiday made a compelling case on that one. Apparently, there's an engineering report that says that the mesh is equal to a fence, a chain link fence, okay? What I'm saying from a building code perspective, if you went there tomorrow, if your building inspector went there tomorrow and saw this mesh, would you say to this person, install a railing, or would you say that the mesh is okay and acts like a parapet?
The mesh would be okay if it meets the loads requirement under Part 4 of the building code.
What does that mean?
Which means, the same load that you will put on a picket railing, that this mesh can take the same loads, then it complies.
Does it take does it take the same load as a picket fence? Not if. I don't want to know if. Have you looked at it, and does it do that? Because that's important for me in my mind. Look, I want to accommodate this constituent, and I'm happy to support the councillor. But I also want to be okay in my mind that I'm not approving something that at some point somebody's going to tumble into the pool and drown, and I didn't do my best to try to prevent that from happening, right?
Correct.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that I have not seen the latest material, and I have not seen the reports. If the reports refer to the loading that is under Part 4 of the building code, then it complies.
Okay, well then, so how will you look at that and assure us that that's okay and we can approve it?
Last question.
So the permit right now that is issued does not reflect the latest configuration. So I would say we need a revision, and part of that revision will include the mesh as well, okay, and the railing or the steps. But those are not, as part of the permit that is issued, does not include the steps and the railing and the mesh.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, on a point of order, may I request that the committee grant a second round of questions?
Yep, absolutely. Well, I'll look to other committee members. Any questions to staff? Seeing none, then Councillor Perruzza, you can continue.
No, really. So I think I got my answer. So let me understand. So are you guys going to go back out? The building department, I'm saying, your building inspector, not the bylaw folks related to the fence. The building department, you're going to go back out and look at this and review that. And then if the mesh meets that load standard and you're confident, you're going to let us know, or what is it that you're going to do? Because I just need to be okay with that in my mind, right? That the building department has looked at this and you've issued a building permit for this thing.
Yeah, of course, we're not going to close the file until we get a revision with the latest configuration proposed, including the mesh, the stairs, and the railing. And then we're going to issue the permit, and the inspector will have to make sure that it complies with the issued permit document, which will include that report about the mesh, up to loading as signed and stamped by the engineer.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Perruzza. I'm just going to take a question to staff here, and actually, I'll just start my time and hand the chair over there to Deputy Mayor Holiday. Unfortunately, I can't, because of the network outage, I was working off my iPad, so I can't see the report, but I remember reading it. If I have this correct, I guess my simple question to staff, it could be building or municipal licensing and standards. Does this issue that Councillor Perruzza has put forward, although a safety issue, which from his questions, I can see the merit to here, but does that have anything to do with the exemption before committee?
Hi, Councillor Scriminder from Municipal Licensing and Standards.
Hi.
So the exemption is just in regards to the enclosure aspect of the pool, and not necessarily it being used as a guard. And I think that my colleague from Toronto Buildings has mentioned that the way that this was looked at was a pool enclosure and not a guard based on the original drawings, which Councillor Holiday has brought up as well, that the original drawings indicated a glass panel. And so I don't believe that my colleagues at Toronto Buildings have had a chance to review it for the specifications of a guard. Again, being the 3 risers, that may be something that they need to determine. Now, there is documentation from the company that built the enclosure that does indicate loads on guards and specifications for that. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to speak to that and whether that would comply with the building code.
Okay, but just so I know, and acknowledging the safety issue Councillor Perruzza brought up, but just very, this isn't in front of committee. The fence exemption is, and the fence exemption in what your staff looked at. I just got a copy of the report now. Thank you, Nancy. The fence exemption is not necessarily to have anything to do with the deck. Just so I have that. It wouldn't have anything to do with.
It wouldn't have to do with the patio and the guard aspect of the patio itself. No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
It would be more in regards to the pool enclosure aspect and meeting the requirements of the fence bylaw.
Understood. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So, any other further questions to staff? Councillor Holiday?
I just have a second question to Mr. Michel from Building Department. Tamara, can you just confirm that I guess there's a building permit for this location, you haven't closed it yet?
The permit is issued and inspection has not closed yet, correct?
Right. So if the applicant changed the plans a little bit, instead of putting in a railing, they put in something else. I mean, these things come up and you'll detect it upon inspection, and you won't close the permit unless you're satisfied that if a guard is needed, that is configured properly. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
All right. So do you think committee can rest assured that if a guard is required in that location, the building department will deal with that and won't be able to close the permit until it's compliant with the code?
I need to clarify one thing here, that if the drop is more than 24 inches, then it will require a guard under the building code. Okay, and it has nothing to do with the pool fence. So let's say the drop is less than 24 inches, then a guard is not required, and it does not have to meet the building code requirement as a guard. Right. But it still be required for the pool fence. So I don't have the elevations here, and the building permit does not show any risers, but I can see from the report and the pictures that actually there are 3 risers, right? So a 3 riser is borderline to 24 inches. So if it's more than 24 inch, a guard is required, and we have to check it. If not, then it may not be required under the Building Code Act, but still required to satisfy the pool fence.
And that really will be between the applicant and you. You will need to figure that out. You will need to determine if you can pass this from a building code perspective, and whatever the configuration is, whatever the materials are that they submitted, engineering reports, whatever it is that's required, you have to be satisfied from a building perspective about the guard.
Correct. And if the building code sets up the minimum standards, so if let's assume it's less than 24 inches, and the applicant submits the report and the material, it would be part of the permit, but not necessarily confirming that it complies with the guard requirement.
And if, I know the applicant has told me that the drop is 18 inches. We don't necessarily know that because the photos aren't dimensioned. If it was a lesser amount, it's likely that you wouldn't require a guard, but you're going to be checking all of that anyways.
Yeah, if the guard is required, we will check it. If it's not required, it's just anybody can go beyond the minimum requirement, but will still be required to be approved for the pool fence. So I think if the motion is to allow it on the basis that it's equivalent to the chain link fence or
Yes.
picket, that's the basis.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had no further questions.
Thank you very much,
I
Deputy
do have a
Mayor.
motion and I will speak to it.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions, I'll bring it to speakers. Councillor Holloway.
Thank you. If I may ask the clerk to put the motion on the screen, I'll just walk the members through it. There are three parts to the motion. The first is to grant the exemption, as you see as the alternate recommendation within the report, which includes making sure that the fence stays in good repair and that it can't be changed. The second part is a little different and unique to this circumstance. And 2A says that the manufacturer's specification indicates that a screen maintenance and inspection, that there are screen maintenance and inspection requirements, and that the screen material service life for walls is a maximum of 8 years. And it also, I'm just reminding the applicant that the gates and the doors need to be kept locked at all times when the pool enclosure area is not in use, and that there can be no sightline obstructions. And finally, if for whatever reason the screened porch is changed to become part of the building, the applicant needs to make a new application. And last, I've asked the clerk to keep the engineer's letter and the specifications as part of the meeting records. And I know they've been submitted. But I think they're important for the decision. So I'll explain this. I think first I'll thank the applicant for doing their homework. I have asked them a lot of questions since last month and now. And I also thank the staff who've done a lot of thinking on this, because this is a very different circumstance. But the mental thought I went through was, the porch with a set of railings around it, just simple pickets at the correct height, would have met the requirements of an enclosure. And the applicant is proposing that really a screen be put all the way up to the ceiling and sealed around the edges. And it's an architectural product. It's not an off-the-shelf screen, as the applicant mentioned. And so therefore it comes with a specification set. Among the information we received was information from an engineer that was able to stamp a letter and say that the performance of this screen is equivalent to that of the types of fences that we put into our bylaw. So with that, you've got an outside professional's opinion that says it's good enough. With the idea of the guard, I think it's a great question raised by Councillor Perruzza. I can't tell you what the height is, other than I know the applicant has said that to me that it's 18 inches. But ultimately, that is going to be on her responsibility when the permit is closed. I also know in reading the specifications that the screen enclosure can be configured in a way to meet the guard requirements of the Ontario Building Code. And that's because I'm sure people build these enclosures higher off the ground. That's not really before us today. It's really, can we accept these materials? And, I'm put before council that we've got the documentation. I'm confident that the process will work its way through, that if there's a building code issue, the building department will determine that. And if you really look into the documentation, I think you'll find that if a metal rail is screwed in on this screen, there is a guard configuration. And so the applicant will have to figure that out. But I think that would only make an enhancement to what we've got here. It's not going to take it backwards if it's configured as a guard. But that really goes over to the building department, and it's not really before this committee. So I spent a lot of time making sure that this was looked at very carefully, because I recognize that, other people may be inspired by the decision that comes here and bring other things before the committee that we're going to have to go through. But based on the documentation, I'm comfortable making this recommendation before you, my colleagues. And I hope you will support that and recognize the care that was put into it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further speakers to the item? Councillor Pertz, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to support Councillor Holiday. I have to tell you, as you all know, I have a few years behind me, although I don't look it as a councillor and of sorts. And I just want to tell you, I'm really impressed with the thoroughness that Councillor Holiday has applied to this and taking a look at it. And in sort of the sincerity and in that sort of comprehensive thoroughness, he's put together a motion that says, look, I think this is okay, and I'm happy to support him in that, and I'll do that. But I also want to say this: I get it. The homeowner here he's good building a pool. They got this deck. It's beautiful. They got this glass enclosure. I've seen the pictures. They want to enjoy it because you say to yourself, well, why wouldn't they, why are we here and why wouldn't they put a railing around it? I get it. It's aesthetics. They want to enjoy it and they have every right to enjoy their property as they see fit. And if, if they want to use a screen and they think the screen will do it and they don't want the nuisance of sort of a rail around that screen or some kind of other barrier, glass or otherwise. They want to feel that draft. Happy to concede that and say that's okay. Because as you know, Mr. Chair, there's a pool, right? And pools, while they're beautiful in the backyard and people get to enjoy them, for some other people, they also get to be a hazard, right? And we've all known that from time to time, we get very deadly accidents that occur in pools. And in that regard, I think we need to do our diligence. And this is why we have these rules around these barriers. I just want to also just simply say, lastly, before I end, to bylaw, that with something like this, it would be nice in the future if your report could address it. Could address these things more holistically. I get it. I understand we're here under a fence exemption. A fence exemption application was made. You wrote a fence exemption report, and basically with very little or no conversation with buildings, seeing that something is actually actively under construction, and that a building permit was issued for that. And not saying to building, and now I'm confident and I'm happy with that, and Councillor Holiday has moved it, that it has come to the attention of buildings. Buildings will review it, and if that mesh meets the standard or meets the whatever the building code requirement is, to provide a safety barrier, not for the pool, not for accessing the pool, but a safety barrier if it's that 24 inches above the ground. To prevent people from falling over and hurting themselves that way. If it meets that, and the building department will take a look at it, and if they're satisfied that the mesh under that requirement meets that, they will apply that standard, and that ultimately will be the approving authority, irrespective of what we do or not do today. If, for example, we say today, yeah, let's go with the mesh as a pool enclosure, but if the building department at some point determines that, sorry, that's not enough because you're more than 24 inches above the ground. I didn't know it was 24 inches. I thought it was 3 risers, but whatever that is, it's their bailiwick. So I'm happy I'm able to walk away from that with the comfort of knowing that we will have met our due diligence safety sort of review of this, and the councillor's done his homework, and I'm happy to support him on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pertz. Any further question or any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, I'll just make a couple quick comments. I definitely thank Councillor Pertz for pointing that out. I think that is something that was definitely worth questioning and our staff on, and I do support Councillor Pertz's request to staff to make these a little more holistic if there are any other issues, especially when we're dealing with stuff in such a sensitive nature, such as pools and kids' safety and everyone's safety, but pools definitely definitely present more hazards when looking at this, so I appreciate that. But as Councillor Pertz has said, I know Councillor Holiday is one to do his homework through and through, and I definitely trust his recommendations that he's moving in front of the committee. So I will be supporting that. So we will now go to the motion, if that could be presented on the screen. Okay, so motion is on the screen, moved by Councillor Holiday. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? I think that carries. So, thank you. Moving on to our next item. EY 23.9, request for offence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447, 156 Church Street, and I believe we have a speaker on this item. Mario Pileggi.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of Community Council. My name is Mario Pileggi, owner of 156 Church Street. Thank you very much for taking this opportunity.
Yep, Mr. Pileggi, welcome to committee. You'll have 5 minutes, and after that, you may have questions from the committee. You may begin.
Sure. So good morning to all. My wife and I are building our current home to raise our children in. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 10-month-year-old here, and we are in the process of applying to build a pool in the backyard. However, we are requesting a fence exemption be granted on the basis of safety coming from my east side of the house and the north-facing property, where our neighbors have high decks and high sheds that could run to be a safety risk as our first point. Our second is we would like to shelter our two young boys from seeing some of the behavior that partakes on our neighbors' properties. And we're hoping that this committee can grant us this opportunity for creating a bit more of a private atmosphere for our family, as well as maintaining the safety of our adjacent neighbors.
Okay, thank you very much for your deputation. Looking to committee members for any questions for Mr. Pileggi. Councillor Nunziata to question.
Just a question to Mario. Have you spoken to your neighbors?
Yes, I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nunziata. Any further questions to the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much for deputing for our committee today. I am seeing no further speakers to this item, and I'll bring it into committee. Questions to staff? Seeing none, Councillor Nunziata to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a motion. If we can have the staff put the motion on the screen. That Etobicoke York Community Council grant the application for a fence exemption permit without conditions, thereby allowing the fence to be constructed as proposed. Direct and require that the installation be maintained in good repair without alteration at such time as replacement of the fence is required, that such installation will comply with Municipal Code Chapter 447 or its successor bylaw. So I'm moving that we do grant the fence exemption. And as the deputant mentioned, that he has spoken to his neighbors, and it is a new home that he's building, and he does have 2 young children. So I will be moving the fence exemption. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none. Okay, we'll place the motion on the screen. Okay, moved by Councillor Nunziata. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Moving on to EY 23.10, request for offense exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 4479, Van Dusen Boulevard. We do not have any listed speakers to this item. Is that correct? Okay, Nancy confirms that. So we will go into committee. Questions to staff? Seeing none, we will go to Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have been in touch with Councillor Grimes' office on this. And Councillor Grimes has conveyed his support for the exemption. And so I'll just make sure I have that right on my notes here. Yes, to grant the offense exemption. And so I will move that.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Holiday. Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, we'll keep the motion on the screen. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. EY 23.11, application to remove a city-owned tree, 29 Creighton Avenue. Let me just see. We do have a speaker to this item. Jody Steiger, and again, my apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
No, that's correct.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us. You will have 5 minutes to give a deputation to the committee, and then following that, you may have some questions from committee members. Welcome. You may begin.
Thank you. Good morning. Bye, Community Council. My name is Jody Steiger, and I'm a certified arborist. I did the original tree preservation plan and the arborist report for 29 Creighton Avenue back in 2018. I'd like to mention that I've been submitting such reports since the inception of the City of Toronto's private tree bylaw in the early 90s. And so I've encountered similar situations. What I like to do is just offer my opinion that there's really no other option that would allow for the installation of the proposed driveway other than to remove the city tree, which I believe I uploaded my report and drawings, and it's T3 on my report. Any options of constructing a driveway while retaining the tree would involve injuries to the tree that the tree is highly unlikely to survive. These injuries would primarily result from excavations required to install the driveway. As well, I believe there's potentially several large limbs that hang low over the driveway that would have to be removed to allow for clearance of taller vehicles. In the past, I had made some recommendations and they were accepted by city staff that have included honeycomb-like sub-bases under a driveway that require less excavation and would be less injurious to the trees, and they've been preserved and that they still survive. However, you still do need to have some excavation, so there's going to be a lot of roots that would have to be removed if the tree were retained. And since most of the tree's roots are in the top 30 centimeters or foot of soil, there's going to be a lot of roots removed in this particular case. And the complication of 29 Creighton, the tree doesn't allow, where the tree is located, it doesn't allow any space between the tree and the driveway. So essentially the tree trunk is actually in the driveway. And in order to excavate and put some sort of driveway in there, you have to stay away from the base of the tree. I would suggest at least a couple of meters, perhaps more if you were excavating and found larger roots. And of course, also considering if you did build the driveway and retain the tree is going to expand, that trunk's going to expand and essentially over time make the driveway unusable. And I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much. I'll look to committee members. I have Councillor Perruzza, followed by Councillor Nunziata. Councillor Perruzza, go ahead, 5 minutes.
Yeah, so just a quick question. For example, I ride my bike in the ravine system all the time and haven't for a little while now. But the ravine, call it driveway or path, in some cases wraps around very large trees. Right. So you have, asphalt, minimal asphalt, I would imagine, that comes very close to trees, and this ravine and that pathway just, sort of, you're able to use it and don't have to remove that tree, right? So we lay down asphalt, and I guess we don't dig very far because we don't damage those trees. Why couldn't you have a similar situation here where, and let me ask you another question. If you parked close to the tree, if a car parked close to the tree, and you don't hit it, of course, could you do that? Would the tree survive? Would the root system survive?
Okay, so I'll answer your first question first. So in terms of the asphalt pathways through the ravine system, I'm not really sure how deep they would excavate, but you could imagine that the excavations for a car or to park something in the driveway, which potentially is a truck, are going to be much deeper than you would require for, say, a walking or a cycling path. The weight is just much less.
No, they're built, we get police cars, we got vehicles, we got works vehicles, garbage trucks. We use those pathways to collect garbage out of the parks, right?
Right.
So much heavier than a car.
Right. So it could depend on also what was there previously. It could depend on how long ago those paths were built, because maybe the trees were smaller then.
No,
I don't really know the answer to that question. Because it's a different circumstance.
Right. We just repaired repaired a stretch in Councillor Ford's area, I believe a couple of years ago, where they just they sort of did a cut. And I'm thinking of a couple of really large trees that I went around where the big machines were used, big construction machines, to shave the asphalt that's there and lay down new asphalt and then press it. Those big rollers, not hand rollers, but those rollers where you see the drivers on. The ones they use for the street. Were there as well, and the trees seemed to survive. Nothing happened to the trees.
Well, okay, but you're talking about just replacing an existing surface, meaning the excavations for the subbase have already been done in the past. That's a little bit different situation, because in this situation there is no existing hard surface to use as a subbase. So in other words, you have to dig into the existing soil, and that's a different situation.
Could you park without laying down asphalt? Could you park a car without asphalt? Would you damage the roots if you just park the car?
Yes, you would, because of the weight of driving back and forth over the root system on top of the soil would compact the soil and damage the roots. And of course, if they did it while it was raining or the soil was wet, that would make the situation much worse.
But if you laid down some granular material and stuff like that, much like we do in our ravine system, right? That would be okay in your view?
If you just did like granular, like stones or something?
Well, whatever we do there, and it works, right? Big trucks use it, and we don't damage the trees. Have you ever been down there? Go take a look.
Well, I don't know exactly what you're talking about,
any of our ravine trails. In fact, there's some that go through just south in Holidays Ward. Massive trees, huge, beautiful trees, and the trail just goes right through them, and you're able to kind of go and there's and I've seen those trails used again, but like I said, by police cars, trucks, garbage trucks, all that stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So how close to the trees? How close to the trees are these?
Right. They wrap right around. You could touch the tree as you're riding by. You could touch the tree trunk, right?
Right. So this particular driveway, this particular tree is right in the driveway.
Yeah.
So essentially, your driveway is going to have to be much more narrow than the proposed. But then, how are you going to get a car or a truck or park something in there?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Nunziata, the question, 5 minutes. Councillor Nunziata, just
I can't hear.
Unmute your mic.
The reason you're asking is because you went through the committee of adjustment because you want to sever the property into two separate lots, correct?
Are you asking that to me, Councillor?
Yes,
Yeah.
these are questions of you,
Oh,
sir.
I'm sorry. That's beyond my area of expertise. I'm the arborist. I do believe that's what you said is correct, but I'm not the applicant or anything like that.
And committee of adjustment approved the application on condition that the tree be removed. Well, I guess, I mean, you're representing the client, and that's the reason for this application, correct?
Well, I was asked to represent them in relation to the tree and what a potential driveway would do to the tree.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
I have questions to staff. I have questions to staff, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Any further questions to the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I am seeing no further speakers to this item. We'll bring it into committee. Councillor Nunziata, question staff, 5 minutes.
Okay, do we have staff on the line?
Are you looking for forestry staff?
Yes.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh.
Forestry staff.
Go ahead,
Max
Councillor.
Urban Forestry.
Hi, Max. How are you?
How are you, Councillor?
Good.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah. So this particular one, okay, if you can just comment on the application, is that it went to the committee of adjustment to sever the property into two separate lots, and that's the reason for this application. And can you give us your comments on the existing tree? And if it's possible that they can do the severance without removing the tree.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Nunziata is correct. This application went to the Committee of Adjustment to sever the lot and building two lots. That's why the tree is in direct conflict with the proposed new driveway, which is in our assessment, talking to the applicant, is no way they can build the driveway and retain the tree. It's very close, it's very narrow path in that proposed new lot. Prior to the Committee of Adjustment, our staff attended the site, and we recommended that Urban Forestry will deny the request to remove the tree. As you questioned, Committee of Adjustment did approve the application, and then conditional to apply for tree to be injured or removed. The applicant did submit the application to remove the tree. Urban Forestry did deny the application, then they wanted to appeal. That's why we prepared the staff report for Community Council.
Yeah, so, we get a lot of these where applications go to the Committee of Adjustment and then they approve it, and then it has to, on condition of forestry, and then it comes to us as an appeal. But maybe it should be the other way around. So we don't have to deal with this when after a Committee of Adjustment application's been approved. So, I don't know. I mean, if we have planning here, if the application could still proceed without the removal of the tree. Because as you know, when we go downtown Toronto for a city council, they'll never support it.
Yeah, that's correct. But the way that we have been dealing with those kind of situations and scenarios, we try to advise the Committee of Adjustment prior to the public hearing what is urban forestry position. And we're talking here about the city tree, which is a city asset. It's not the private tree. So our guidelines are clear that our recommendation is denial of that tree, because we're losing the benefits from the city tree, and we're losing the planting space on the city-owned city road allowance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Councillor Holiday to question, 5 minutes.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up with a couple of questions to Forestry, to Max. Max, in your analysis of the application, and I don't know to what depth you did it, did you reach the conclusion that the recommendation of Forestry would frustrate the development?
Well, to some point, yes. But the problem is that we advise them prior they get approval. You're applying to sever the lot in 2 smaller lots and building 2 new dwellings. And that is in direct conflict with this particular tree, 58 centimeter London plane, healthy and minor. So they went through, they wanted to go through the process, they did their job, they applied for variances and for the consent. They got approval, they're coming back to us. So our position is like, you know, that's what is urban forestry position. This, after we got the appeal request from the applicant, the owner, we tried to see how we can solve the problem. We did a bylaw administrative review through our manager. This went up to the director of forestry and other staff to see how we're going to deal in this case. We got approval from the Committee of Adjustment. We did request denial, but we're talking now after the fact. So that was the decision. There's no provision in the bylaw to let that tree go at this point of time, but it's up to the community council, city council to make that call and decision. So are they going to support based on the planning approval, Committee of Adjustment, as Councilor Nunziata mentioned, approved it, or they're going to deny the request?
And just so I'm clear, I think I understood your comments is you really don't have a choice. You don't have a discretion in this matter. The bylaw says that you can't support the removal of the city asset, the city tree. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
In the past, did Forestry ever support these types of removal requests? And I'm just trying to figure out if things have changed. I seem to even recall like a year or two ago, a positive report going to City Council suggesting the removal of a tree. And I think Council reversed the decision.
Yeah, that's true. Council do not support the decision to remove the trees. Have been dealing in the past kind of different way with also kind of new guidelines starting January 2020 because of the conversation or the discussion on the City Council about a tree on different district, city tree. And that was the guideline and the policy procedures from Forestry saying that in this case, we're going to let the City Council, Community Council make that decision. We have no authority to let that tree go. Based on the guidelines approved by City Council for Committee of Adjustment, tree protection through the Committee of Adjustment process, we are required to attend the site prior to the committee public hearing meeting and recommend what is our suggestion. So it's up to them under the Planning Act to listen to us or not. But pretty much our hands are tied down in the bylaw. We have no mechanism in the bylaw to let the tree go. And that's why they come to the City Council and Committee Council.
And I guess for one final clarification, if it was a little brand new little tree, even a sapling, it would be the same. It would be the same outcome. I know this is a sizable tree, but at the end date, it would be you would still have to take the same approach because it's a city tree. Is that right?
If we go by the book, yes, you're right. We take the same approach. But we have a couple of cases that saying, okay, that is that small tree. Can you transplant somewhere in the city road at once and let the building go, or try to solve the problem between the councillor and urban forestry and saying, hey, this is the situation now. We can transplant that tree will survive, and then let the resident build whatever they got approval to. But this situation, as you mentioned, Councilor Holiday, is a bit different. It's a huge, big tree, 58 centimeters, healthy and maintainable. So it's a big loss in community. So kind of forestry is taking this road to go to the City Council, the Community Council and City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Dita. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Any further questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll go to speakers. Councilor Nunziata.
Thank you. You know, it's very frustrating when we get these applications that go to the Committee of Adjustment for approval, and Committee of Adjustment approves these applications on condition that the tree be removed. I mean, we're getting so many of them. I think really what the process should be is to come to Forestry first before it goes to Committee of Adjustment. And it's very difficult.
Councillor Nunziata, my apologies, I'm just going to stop your time. Are you moving a motion on this? Because we don't seem to have one.
Sorry, I'm just moving the staff recommendation.
Oh, okay. Thanks very much. Continue.
Yeah. And I'm just giving the reason for it. And, makes it very difficult. And as we know, when it goes down to Toronto Council, be a huge debate. So, I have to support the staff recommendation on this application.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor. Any further speakers? I see Councillor Perruzza, 5 minutes. Councillor Perruzza, your mic is muted.
Yeah, sorry. First of all, let me apologize. I'm a little more active than I've normally been over the past few meetings. So I hope you guys don't get upset with me. But I'm going to support Councillor Nunziata's motion. I don't know ultimately what happens with this. I get it. It goes to Committee of Adjustment. Committee of Adjustment adds a condition that says, subject to council allowing you to remove the tree for this particular type of construction, this particular development. Now, I don't know what it means if, for example, council says, no, we're not going to allow you to remove the tree. Does that then deny the severance? Probably not. What it denies is the severance and building two houses in the way they had planned and putting a driveway where the tree is. There are many ways you can build. You can be really creative. The planning department will only require a couple of parking spots for a new home. They do it, per person. I don't know what the number is in that particular area on that street. And they'll say, look, can you build two houses? Yeah, providing you provide X number of parking spaces. Where you provide the parking spaces doesn't really matter. Some builders, some folks like this, want it real easy. And they come to us and say, please make it real easy for me. I want to put a driveway right in front, traditional. Could you put a parking spot where the existing parking spaces are and create the appropriate easements so that the other house that you saw on the other side use those spots and they apply? Yes, you can. The parking spots don't have to be right in front of your front window or the front window of the new home. Nothing says that. Can they be next door? Yeah, they can. Can you, as the landowner, create the appropriate easements and the appropriate instruments that allow that relationship to take place? Yes, you can. Might it be maybe you can make it attractive and get even more money. Maybe it'll cost you a little bit of money because you won't get as much money for that house because somebody doesn't have direct access into their home or into their own garage or into their own garage. Doesn't prohibit you from building a garage for storage. Maybe not for your car. Behind the tree. Absolutely not. But they come to us and say, remove this beautiful tree. And I looked at this Google map of this particular stretch. There's no other tree here. Max is absolutely correct. You lose an existing, mature, beautiful tree that adds value to the neighborhood. All your neighbors lose value because when you take away that tree, your neighbors lose that value, lose that aesthetic value in the street. But it makes it easy for you because you're able to build your home in the traditional way and sell it in the traditional way. I think that we have a responsibility as well to save the tree. And that's not to say to this fellow, the applicant here, that he can't build his 2 houses. He just has to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to do that while preserving the tree. And I'm going to support Councillor Nunziata in that. And if we put this fellow to that challenge, you will find that they will meet that challenge and do a good job with it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perruzza. Deputy Mayor Holliday, 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regrettably, I cannot support the staff recommendations here. I think it's really a matter of consistency on how I've approached these in the past. I know we've dealt with similar situations. I've had some in my own ward where there was conflict with construction. I regret some of the debate often has to do back to the decision that was made before to sever. I don't know. That was the decision of the Committee of Adjustment. It's not ours to make. But I don't really like the way the process works with respect to bylaws which conflict with each other or end up in a circumstance where the bylaw conflicts with each other. I think it puts staff in a very difficult position. I think it puts community council and city council in a very difficult position. And I think it puts Committee of Adjustment in a very difficult position. I appreciate the comments of Councillor Perruzza, but I think at some point you just got to be practical about these things. The decision was made to grant the consent to sever the lots. The homes require a parking space. They require a curb cut to get up to that parking space. And unfortunately, that is in direct conflict with this tree. And so I see that as a frustration of the development. And, I think things just got out of check with respect to the intent of this bylaw, and I hope we find a way to fix it. And I've seen these before city council, even an example in the past where the staff had recommended that the tree actually be removed. I appreciate that perhaps city council has to make the decision to remove the tree because of the structure that we've got. But it's regrettable that the circumstance has to go through the process in the way at which it is before us. I think there just needs to be a better way so that there's more certainty in all of the process so applicants can understand all of this going through, and we don't have to have these type of discussions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Holliday. So I'll just speak for one second. I do think there is a process issue, and I think it's something that we need to kind of, as a council, figure out just for the benefit of residents who look to do this stuff. So I do have to side with Councillor Holliday on this, and I unfortunately can't support staff recommendations in this particular circumstance. So I'll conclude my remarks there. So Councillor Nunziata has moved a motion, have moved staff recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, it looks like it's going to be a tie vote. So what happens if it's a tie vote?
So we'll conduct the vote to see how, and then it will head to council without recommendations, and in council's wisdom, it will do what it sees fit with the item at council, if it's a tie.
Well, either way, even if we supported the to remove the tree, it would still go to Toronto Council.
Correct, that's correct. It'll still head to council, and it would be dealt with there, depending on what the committee recommends. So with that being said, we'll put your motion on the screen. Councillor Nunziata's motion on the screen. And just to adopt the staff recommendation, so it'd be to deny the staff recommendations. Pardon? Deny the request. Yes, sorry, deny the request for tree exemption. So I'll conduct a recorded vote. So I will hand it over to the clerk.
When I call your name, please indicate how you're voting on motion to adopt the staff recommendations. Councillor Perruzza?
In favor.
Councillor Nunziata?
In favor.
Councillor Holliday,
Opposed.
Councillor Ford,
Opposed.
Councillor Grimes is absent. The item is a tie. The item will go to council without recommendation.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Okay, moving on with the agenda. EY 23.12, application to remove 2 city-owned trees, 146 Stanley Avenue. This is in Councillor Grimes' area. Let me see if we have speakers on the item. I believe we do.
Just on a point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Deputy Mayor Holliday.
I thought it would be helpful to announce my intention that I will defer this item. I've been in touch with Councillor Grimes' office with respect to this matter. It would defer it 1 meeting cycle, but I am in your hands if there is utility in taking a deputation, that's fine.
Well, Deputy Mayor Holliday, I think the deputants have waited for this item. Maybe I can turn it over to the deputants and see if they'd prefer to depute at the next council, knowing your intention. So we are looking for, and my sincere apologies if I mispronounce this, Ameka and Shaikh Udobi. Are you?
Hello, this isn't home with the city clerk's office. The speaker's mic is currently unmuted. They should be able to speak. Shaikh Idobi, your mic is currently unmuted. I'm sorry, Chair. I will attempt to connect with the speaker directly.
Okay. Okay. We'll. And you know what? I'll turn over to the committee. Do we want to hold for for the deputants, knowing that we're going to defer it? Maybe, you know what? It doesn't hurt to hold the item down. Let's just hold it down, and we'll see if we can get the speakers on. So we'll hold that down. We'll move on to the next item, EY 23.13, naming of 2 proposed private streets at 225 Birmingham Street and Councillor Grimes' ward. Just to check the... So we do not have speakers on this. Questions to staff? Seeing none. To speak, Councillor Holliday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I move the staff recommendations, please?
Deputy Mayor Holliday moving staff recommendations on EY 23.13. All those in favor? That carries. Moving on to EY 23.14, pedestrian crossing protection at the Pond Road and Nelson Road. I do believe we have a speaker on this. The speaker I have on the list is Jennifer Del Ricio. Again, my apologies if I mispronounced that.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jennifer. You have 5 minutes to give a deputation to the committee. Thank you for joining us. And then after that, we may have some questions. Thank you. You may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Council. My name is Jennifer Del Ricio. I'm a recent graduate of Osgoode Hall Law School at York University. As a student, I lived on campus in a law student residence called Osgoode Chambers, which is located along the Pond Road near its intersection with Nelson Road. Before campus was closed due to the pandemic, myself and a large number of other students and York community members would cross the Pond Road at its intersection with Nelson Road every day. We crossed in order to access nearby buildings, including the law school, the nursing school, the engineering building, and the library building. The Pond Road experiences quite heavy vehicle traffic and is often used as a thoroughfare for those driving across campus from Jane Street and Kill Street back and forth. Cars often drive much faster than the 40-kilometer posted speed limit, and pedestrians often have to dash between cars to cross the street. This is a practice that's, of course, generally unsafe for community members, but especially so for people with disabilities, those who use mobility devices, and those pushing strollers or pulling carts. It's also more unsafe for community members crossing the pond road at night, such as for student pedestrians walking to and from evening classes. At morning and evening rush hour, traffic along the pond road is often bumper to bumper, sometimes for an hour or more, and pedestrians are required to ensure that cars in both lanes intend to let them cross before they can do so safely. I believe that a pedestrian crosswalk at the intersection of the Pond Road and Nelson Road is in the best interests of community member safety and the safety of all visitors to campus. It's my understanding that members of the York University, Osgoode Hall Law School, and broader community have been hoping for a crosswalk at this location for several years. And as you'll see in the February report from City Transportation Services, there's an indication that the crosswalk is justified and meets the warrant criteria and environmental safety audit standards. I strongly encourage you to support the establishment of this pedestrian crosswalk for the safety of all community members and visitors to the York University campus. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to council today.
Thank you very much for joining us, Jennifer. Looking to committee if they have any questions for the deputant. Seeing none, thank you. Seeing no further deputants to the item, I will bring it into committee. Questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Perruzza to speak.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. As the councillor for the area in question, I know it well. I know that staff has gone out, and as you can see by the report, they've done a warrant study and have concluded that the request meets the warrants, and they're in fact recommending it today. And I apologize, Mr. Chair. The first thing I should have done is moved the staff recommendations that are before us today. So I'm happy to move the staff recommendations that basically recommend the installation of the crossover, and I believe the case that was made before us by the deputant is compelling on its own. It basically lays out why we should do this, and we should follow her good counsel and approve the staff recommendation, and thereby approving the installation of a crossover at this particular intersection. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Perruzza. Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, I would echo Councillor Perruzza's sentiments and thank the deputant for her involvement in her school community and keeping people safe. So that being said, Councillor Perruzza is moving staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. At this point, I've been advised by the clerk that we can return to EY 23.12, application to remove 2 city-owned trees, 146 Stanley Avenue. I believe you were able to get a hold of the deputant.
Hello, this is Nahom with the City Clerk's Office. I am now unmuting the deputant's phone line.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir. Just before you begin, just so you know that it is the intention of the committee to defer this item to next month's Etobicoke York Community Council. With that being said, you definitely have the right to speak for 5 minutes. I just want to give you that notice. So you have 5 minutes, and concluding that 5 minutes, you may have questions of the committee. You may go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to just state that we are the owners of the property at 146 Stanley Avenue. Myself, Chike Udobi, and my wife, Amaka Iku. We, over the past year, we undertook the project to demolish our old home to build a new property for our family. I have a terrible cold or cough as I recover from COVID. So my wife is going to make the case as to why we need to have those trees, both trees removed, not just for the project, but for other reasons that involve my neighbors and the community at large. So I'm going to take it away.
All right. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councilors and members of the committee. Excuse my husband as he finds a quiet spot to sit. Thank you for having us this morning. We're speaking to support the application to remove the 2 trees at 146 Stanley Avenue. The whipping willow in the application itself, as well as the birch, but the whipping willow in particular, this tree is not a city-approved tree due to its size and the strength of the wood. But yet it was planted by the former owners of the property. And of course, when we purchased this property, we were not aware of the tree itself or the features or the extent that the damage of the tree had caused to our property or our neighbors. I'm also speaking on behalf of our neighbors who are on this call, but obviously do not have we're not given the time to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of my neighbors on 144, 148, as well as 142 Stanley Avenue, as they have all lived on this street collectively for over a period of 20 years and have spent thousands of dollars on repairs and countless of hours on calls with 311 due to this tree. In my opinion, the report that the Forestry Department provided was incomplete, as it did not highlight that the tree itself had exposed roots and had also lifted asphalt on our property as well as our neighbors. The tree also has a codominance of 5 meters, which also has with included bark, and it also has epicormic branches and overhead utility wires in the crown. Of course, this information was provided by an independent report from an arborist.
Forestry.
This was provided by a report by an independent arborist. The thing here is that the branches of this tree actually do break in strong. So we sustained some damage from this tree, us and our neighbors as well. When we have strong winds, and this damage obviously has been sustained by our vehicles parked on our driveways. The presence of this tree has caused sinkholes on city property. So there's a school directly across from our property that our girls attend, and they've had 2 sinkholes that the city has actually come out to fix. So the presence of this tree has caused sinkholes on our property as well as the city property. It's also buckled our sidewalks. And very recently, due to the construction that we're undertaking, the city water department has come by to do some inspection for water to connect our pipes, and they've also found a sinkhole on our property. This tree in particular, the willow itself, will choke any new tree that we plant on our street. And I say our street, and I name 144, 142, 148 Stanley Avenue, as well as 146. This willow itself will choke any new tree that's planted on our street, and it will continue to pose a danger to us as well as our neighbors, because this tree itself belongs on a golf course. And I'm going to read a little statement from our neighbors as well, because we've also done some research regarding this tree itself, and that the willow itself, the willow and the bark, were not properly planted by the previous owners of 146. The area that the both trees currently take up is 225 square feet. The whipping willow trees are best planted where there's plenty of space for it to grow, like parks and golf courses. The willow itself can reach a height and spread of 45 to 70 feet. Its roots can grow 3 times the length of its trunk. So it's an extremely invasive tree to have in nearby infrastructure. And if you live in Mimico, you will know that a lot of the infrastructure is quite close to each other. And so it's important to note this. The roots of this particular tree actually lies very close to the soil surface, causing bumps and lawns to the driveway. So in all this to say is that we're here to address the damage this tree has caused to us, and the damage, and that it's also in direct conflict.
I'd ask you to wrap up.
That we're building on the driveway.
Okay, thank you very much for your deputation. Just before I look to canvass committee members for questioning, I just, ma'am, you did make just a comment around individuals not being able to sign up to depute in front of the committee. I've just been advised by our clerks that we haven't seen any requests, and The list, anyone has the ability to request to speak even as committee is going. So we don't have anyone registered to speak, but the option is there. I'll look to committee if you have any questions for the deputant. Seeing none, thank you very much. And we, of course, on behalf of members of the committee, wish your husband well as he recovers from COVID. Moving into committee.
Thank you.
Questions to staff? Seeing none, Councillor Holliday to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have been in touch with the local councillor's office and am going to move a deferral to next meeting.
Okay, deferral has been moved. Any other speakers to the item? Seeing none, all I'll say is, I understand the deputant's concerns here, and I think there's definitely some merit here, but I have respect for the local councillor who can't join us today due to a procedure he has had. We'll defer it. I'll support deferring it to next day, and you can work with the local councillor as this comes back to committee. So motion to defer, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be deferred to next day. Moving on, EY 23.23, removal of a director from the Kingsway Business Improvement Area Board of Management. I believe we have a speaker on this item. We do. We will call on Giuseppe Battiste to give a 5-minute deputation to the committee. Can we get him on the line?
Yes, I have the right to speak in.
Excellent. Giuseppe, welcome. You'll have 5 minutes to give a deputation to the committee, and then following that, there may be some questions for you. You may begin.
Okay, I've been in so many years in the board, and last year I missed last 2 years, 2 years ago I missed in a few meetings, but this year.
Giuseppe, I'm just going to.
Clerk's office. I apologize for the interruption, Chair. This is Nahum with the City Clerk's office. I was forced to mute the deputant as they seem to be having some audio issues. I will attempt to unmute the deputant again.
Okay, all right, okay. I don't miss any of 3 meetings. According to Chapter 19, page 19 to 1907, after missing 3 executive meetings. I didn't miss any. Like I didn't fall attend 3 consecutive board meetings. And the next meeting, 2 people passed a motion. I don't see a majority here. And they removed me from the board for no reason. I don't see that is a reason. Because the secretary, you have to call me, you have to inform me. The secretary never informed me. I called them when you guys have a meeting. They say, oh, we have a coronavirus. We don't do. And one time I fall to get in. No, I fall. They don't let me get in on Zoom. So if you cannot get in on Zoom, I'm waiting to try to get in. Doesn't mean I don't want to go to the meeting. If you don't inform me there is a meeting, doesn't mean I don't want to go to the meeting. So in this accusation, I go against them. And basically, they voted me out on that one. If there is another reason, I will defend myself. I serve my community. I've been in Ottimo Restaurant for 27 years and in the board for so many years. I never see something like that. So when it was the general meeting, I was there. The chair was there. I voted against because right now we have a problem. I have my restaurant closed, and I've been lose money, lots of money, and I still try to keep it go on. and I asked him to reduce the taxes, what they're reducing the taxes, and now I have a problem to pay the BIA taxes. Where I get the money if they close my restaurant? So I don't think the Canadian Constitution say if you don't lose money, you don't have to pay taxes. And that my defense is basing on that one. So they have to inform me. They didn't inform me. So, and then another thing, when they passed an motion, there was very, very few people. And like John Brackeman, moving the minus, the second, Joanne Yaman, and non opposed. I talked with the people was that day, the meeting, and they say, oh, I don't vote against you. So only two, the chair didn't vote, so only two people, they move in a motion and they put a not opposed. But there was opposed, if the vote is standing, like they say they don't vote yes or no, means no. So basically, on two people, they say they remove it from the board. And that's what is my defense now. Then if you say other things, just to let me know, I will have a defense in the other things. I think my 5 minutes pass. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Any questions from members of the committee?
Mr. Chair?
Yep, Councillor Holiday, 5 minutes question.
I thank you to the deputant for speaking to us. I just wanted to draw the committee's attention and the deputant's attention to an email that was submitted today, I think, from the BIA, and I wondered if the gentleman can confirm. It says that the attendance in 2015 was 2 out of 10 meetings. In 2016, 1 out of 9. In 2017, 1 out of 9. In 2018, 0 out of 7. In 2019, 0 of 3. In 2020, 0 of 6. And in 2021, the January meeting. Is that correct?
No, general meeting, I was there. I was connected. And the next meeting, I was connected. The other one, the last one, I was connected. Sometimes there was a problem to be connected on Zoom. Oh, don't let me get in. In the past, the chair, I was talking to the chair. I said, listen, I'm so a little bit busy with the restaurant. If you need me, you just let me know. I will come in the meeting. They never inform me. And that's I can guarantee that one. And then I get back everything on the general meeting because they say the chapter 19 say I have to miss in 3 meetings in the rule. After I go in, I get back all the meeting. I lose. So if you read very well, chapter thing, I get back. So I got it back. And then after I got it
Mr.
back,
Batiste?
they're moving me out. I don't think that's fair.
Do you agree with the numbers that I read out?
19. They don't respect chapter 19.
Mr. Batiste?
That's not nice because I got in again.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
may I ask that if either my question is answered or we end the questions?
Deputy Mayor Holiday, the deputant does have a right to respond, but I do see it's kind of going on here. Do you have another question for the deputant?
No, if I don't have a response to the question I asked, then I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions to the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much for appearing in front of the committee today. We do have one other speaker, but he did inform us Mr. Lombardo, now he is unavailable to depute, and he has sent in a communication into the committee as a written deputation for members to take note of. We'll now bring it into committee. Any questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Holiday on behalf of Councillor Grimes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just simply, I'll move the staff recommendations.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Holiday. Has moved staff recommendations, or the recommendations in the report. Any further speakers? Seeing none, so move what is recommended before us. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And I believe we have 3 items left on the agenda, if I am keeping tally correct. And they are the 3 new items that have been put forward. So we will go to item EY 2324, request to purchase portion of untraveled public lane 127 King Street. We don't have a deputant on this. I will bring it into committee. Questions of staff? Seeing.
Just move the recommendation, Mr. Chairman, for the staff to report back.
Okay. Okay, so speakers, we move the recommendation of Councillor Nunzia's recommendation. Any further speakers? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next item of new business, EY 23.25, reopening item EY 22.4, 1325 to 1365, the Queensway zoning bylaw amendment application. This was submitted by Councillor Grimes. Questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Holiday, we'll look for some direction from you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move the recommendations contained in the letter from Councillor Grimes. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving Councillor Grimes' recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And moving on to our last item, EY 23.26, reopening items EY 20.2 and EY 20.3, 2 and 10 East Small Crescent zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report, and 220 the East Mall official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report. This is on behalf of Councillor Grimes. Questions of staff? Seeing none. Speakers? Councillor Holiday on behalf of Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I will move the recommendations contained in the letter from Councillor Grimes.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no further speakers, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So that brings us to the end of the agenda. I do have a motion to excuse absentees. That we'll just place on the screen here. Etobicoke Community Council excuse the absence of Councillor Mark Grimes from the April 19, 2021 Etobicoke Community Council, and as I said earlier, wish him a speedy recovery. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And the bills? We can adjourn. Oh, you need the bills? 1 second. Since Councillor Peruzza was so active this meeting, I'll give the bills to him.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move the, there it is, that the Etobicoke York Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw bills 252 to 254 and 257 to 262 prepared for the April 19, 2021 meeting, 23 of the East York Community Council. No,
Etobicoke York Community Council.
Etobicoke York Community Council. Sorry about that.
There we are. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And we're good to adjourn? No, there's not. Oh, we have one more? And then Councillor Perruzza, you have one more.
Yeah, I'm happy to move that the Etobicoke York Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Etobicoke York Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 23 on April 19, 2021.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Adjournment, moved by Councillor Nunziata. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, clerks and IT staff and everyone who put the agenda together. And
stay safe, everybody.
Stay well.
Happy, safe. Ciao.
Thank you.